my favorite pickup of the show wasn't the most expensive, but it was a card that I haven't seen in years. And this was a player that I didn't expect to pick up any cards of, but the moment I saw it, I was really hoping I could work out a deal for it. So I picked up this. I've invested in sports cards for over 20 years, and I just got back from the National. Now, when I was first getting started with cards, one of the things that helped me the most was understanding how experienced investors actually made decisions, because that's what helped me sharpen my approach the most and ultimately helped me make more money. So in this video, I'm going to do exactly that for you. I'm going to walk you through how I approached the biggest show of the year. I'll take you through the big trade I made at the very first table I stopped at. I'll walk you through a couple of the mistakes that I already know are going to cost me some money, and I'll show you my favorite pickup of the show, which is a card I haven't seen in years that I couldn't believe I found. Let's get into it. So anytime I go to a show, it actually starts before I ever walk through the doors. So I'm always going through my inventory beforehand to decide what cards am I taking versus which ones stay home. I don't really want to load up my backpack with a bunch of stuff that I'm asking way above market value on, because I know I'm not going to move those anyway, and it's just going to tire me out and make my back hurt by the end of the day. So I specifically filter for cards that I know that I'm happy to move for market value, and then I price everything. I need to know in advance, what am I going to ask for this card when someone says, what do you need out of this? I've always found prepping in advance helps me be a lot more efficient when I'm at the show, so it's always worth putting in a little bit of time to make sure you're ready to go. All right, let's get to the deals. So the first one I want to run you through is a trade I made at the very first table I stopped at. Now, this is a guy I've dealt with many times over the years, so we know each other well, and we oftentimes will make deals when we're at the same show together. And so I looked through his inventory, I pulled out the box of cards that I was looking to move, and he went through, and I ultimately traded for this James Wood Topps Heritage Red Ink Auto out of 76 as a PSA 10. It's a well-known set that goes back many years, and it's a tough grade because this is a paper stock card, so these oftentimes have corner touches and that sort of things. It's Pop 11, so a PSA 10 is a really nice grade on one of these. Here's what I gave up. I traded 3 Caleb Williams Silver Prism Variation PSA 10s valued at around $600 each, a Caleb Williams Flashback Silver Prism PSA 10 valued at about $350, a Shohei Ohtani Topps Rookie Card number 700 PSA 10 valued at about $800, and then a Shohei Ohtani Topps Update Legends in the Making Blue PSA 10 valued at about $600. So all in, I gave up about $3,550 for this card. Now, the most recent sale on the wood was actually closer to $3,000, so why would I give up $3,500 for this card? Well, it has sold as high as $3,800 in the past couple of months here, but even going back before the season started, these were still selling in the $3,200 to $3,500 range, and he's had a really nice year. So this feels like the type of card that's maybe lagged behind from a growth standpoint when you look at some of his other stuff that's climbed a good bit this season, and these just haven't really budged. The other thing that I like about this is that even though I gave up $3,550 for this card, I was only into these for $1,436 because the Caleb Williams cards I picked up way back in the early part of the calendar year when his values were quite a bit lower than they are now, and the Ohtanis were cards that I personally graded, so there was a lot of margin built into all of the cards that I traded. Usually when I'm making a trade like this, I like to be the one that's on the receiving end of the best card in the deal, so that's the other part that I liked about this. I'm trading 6 littler, lower end cards for 1 bigger, nicer card. And James Wood is a good name that I just like anyway, so if he keeps hitting this year, might have a chance to flip later in the season if his values pick up. Otherwise, happy to hold that one into next season and see what his values look like in the springtime. All right, the next deal I want to walk you through is I picked up these 2 cards in a lot together. So this Con Knipple Basketball Refractor PSA 10 and this Mattis Buzelis Green Shimmer First Off the Line Prism. It's actually graded as authentic. It's numbered out of 12. And I looked at the card through the case and I really didn't see anything wrong with it. There might be a tiny little corner touch, but it's not the kind of card that feels like it's going to grade a PSA 4 or something. So I'm actually not sure why this was slapped as authentic instead of just getting it graded. But the cards were stickered at $340 for the Con and only $250 for the Buzelis, which is what caught my attention. First of all, as a player that I like anyway, because I think he could see some rise going into next season, so I've already picked up a handful of his cards. He's coming off of a big year too, and I think that people may look at him as a guy who could potentially develop into a rising star, and he may get some preseason love. But looking at comps, this was a $400 to $500 card for most of last basketball season. This is the type of card that you can go eBay fishing with. Could be completely wrong, but with that kind of rarity working for it, I would be surprised if I don't ultimately move this card for profit closer to the season. Now, the reason I like the Con specifically is a lot of his market fell way off after the playoffs when he kind of had that dud of a playoff series, and his values have sort of bottomed out. And so I've noticed that some of the parallels from Topps Chrome have already started to see a little bit of rise in recent weeks, but this basketball refractor hasn't moved. moved. This is about as low as it's ever been, and these were quite a bit higher during the season last year. Now, what we can't do is just say, oh, this used to be higher in the past, so it's going to be higher in the future. Not at all. But what I do like is that it at least shows that people were willing to pay higher amounts for this card in the past, and now that other cards from the same set are starting to see some rise already, it makes me wonder if this is just a parallel that happens to be lagging behind, and it's going to become overdue to see some rise itself as his other parallels from this same set start to pick up. But anyway, I negotiated the seller to $550 for the pair, which feels like a pretty decent place to be on these two cards with some meaningful upside. All right, one of the next things I'll walk you through is I like to go through some of the raw cards at shows when I can find tables that don't seem to have a lot of graded cards and look through those raw cards to see if I can find any good grading candidates. One of the hardest parts about buying to grade online is that you don't get to see the card until after you've already bought it. So when you're at shows, you can get a little bit of a closer look at the condition of the cards before you decide whether or not to pull the trigger. So I spent a few $100 on some of these, and I've got a pile that I'm going to try right away at the $80 per card level, and then I've got a second pile that I'm buying to basically just sit on until the lower grading levels reopen with PSA. As of the time of this video, they are still paused. And I picked up some sports stuff too, but I actually focused the most on Pokemon because some of the grading numbers are absolutely crazy right now, and I've done really well on grade and flip Pokemon plays lately. But some of the nicer ones, this Slowpoke guy here is wasn't terribly expensive raw, but these things are doing over $2,000 as a PSA 10, so we'll give that one a shot. I picked up a few others here that are $300-$400 if they get 10s, and those ones looked especially clean, so I'm okay spending $80 to try them. I've talked about this exact card in other videos, but I've got quantities of this one that I've picked up. What I like about it is you can take a swing on that card for about $20 raw. So it's not a big risk, and if it's not gradable when it comes in the mail, you can flip out of it raw, but being able to see it in person gives me a lot of peace of mind that this one is a grading candidate. I also picked up a handful that I'm just going to wait for the cheaper grading levels to return here. So here are a few of those. And then there were a few mistakes that I made that I honestly don't know what I was thinking or what I was doing here, but I guess the lighting in the convention center is a little dim in certain parts of the show, but like this Suicune thing here is, it sells really well as a PSA 10. But on the back here, you see that little kind of blurry line right under the Pokemon logo there? That's actually an indent on the card, the way that it's hard to get it on camera for you guys to see it, but so that one's nowhere close to being a 10, and I just didn't see that at the show. Another one is this Zekrom thing. I don't know. I don't really do Pokemon that much other than to grade and flip, but it's got a little bit too much white on one of these corners down here. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get this on camera, but just trust me, this one is also not a grading candidate. And then the one that I really messed up on was this Snorlax card, which also does very well as a PSA 10. But if you see this one on the back, there's just indents in this card. Let me see. Yeah, right in the Pokeball section there. So I don't know how I missed that. It's so obvious, but swing and a miss on that one. So anyway, those are not candidates to be graded, and I guess I'll just flip out of them raw, but even I make mistakes, guys. Even when I was looking at these cards in person, I probably should have been just a little bit more careful on those ones. Now, one thing I try to do every time I go to a big show is spend time with people. So I was able to catch up with some of the dealers and the partners that I work with throughout the year. I got a chance to meet some of the people that I only talked to online before, and we even had a handful of Ignite members that were there all at the same time. So we got together and grabbed a quick group picture. Dealing cards is so much fun, but this is the part that's become my favorite part of these shows because the relationships are really the thing that stick with you. All right, now my favorite pickup of the show wasn't the most expensive, but it was a card that I haven't seen in years. And this was a player that I didn't expect to pick up any cards of, but the moment I saw it, I was really hoping I could work out a deal for it. And sure enough, I was able to. So I picked up this Nolan Arenado 2010 Bowman Chrome Refractor, numbered out of 777. Now, on the surface, this probably doesn't seem like a special card. Aging player, he's no good anymore, whatever you want to say about him. But this is a card that is impossible to grade. This entire set was so difficult back in 2010. And then he's a player that I've followed over the years that I've made tons of money on. And so I know his market really well. Haven't been buying his cards because I don't really believe in his short-term appeal as a card investment. But when you do find the rare ones, those are the ones that do usually have a following out there. I still check his market regularly, and I haven't seen this card show up in years. So this is truly rare and really difficult to come by. And normally I have a rule where if a dealer doesn't have cards priced, I just skip that table. But I happened to see this one out of the corner of my eye as I was just walking past. And this card was sitting up in the top of his showcase. And I was shocked that it was a 10. I figured it was a 9 when I first caught glimpse of it. You just don't see these out there. And so I asked him, all right, what do you need out of this thing? Fully expecting him to have it at a price that I wouldn't touch. And, I thought he was going to say $900 or something. And he said he only wanted $200 for it. And I would have happily paid $200 for it. But, you're at a show. I might as well haggle a little bit. So I ended up getting it for $180 from him. So this one made my entire weekend a lot more fun. It's the type of card that I'll enjoy owning. And I do think that this is probably worth more than $200 to the right buyer, even right now. So it's the type of card that I can go fishing with on eBay and see what kinds of offers come in. But in the meantime, it's kind of that double whammy where you get to own it and have fun owning it. And then when it's time to move out of it, you can probably make money on it as well. Now, one thing that I wanted to do at this show, but I didn't end up doing, was I wanted to buy a nice Victor Wembanyama card. I've been looking for stuff of him ever since the playoffs ended, and I was hoping that I would find something nice to pick up and sit on. And so I saw a lot of stuff on the lower end of the spectrum, and I also saw stuff on the higher end of the spectrum where people were asking $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 for some of his bigger cards. What I was looking for was something in the mid-range, and I didn't find a whole lot of that. So I ended up walking away, but I feel good about the decision because that means that I saved my budget and I can keep looking online until I find what I'm looking for. One other thing I'll say about the show is that this VIP pass saved me at least 2 hours of waiting in line, so that was well worth the money. And then finally, to round us out, I have to talk about, after the show, I actually made another glorious pickup, and it was this delicious bowl of Chipotle, probably the most selfish burrito bowl ever assembled. Double chicken, every single possible topping, because I realized that I had gone all day and only eaten a couple of protein bars that I had thrown in my bag, and I was starving after being on my feet all day. And one of the tips that I've found to be most valuable in life in general is when you go through the line and you ask for double chicken, don't ask for double chicken right away. Let them scoop normal chicken and then say, oh, could I actually please make that double chicken? You're definitely going to get a few extra little chicken cubes versus just saying double chicken from the beginning where they're like, okay, we got double chicken guy here. And they give you like 2 3/4 scoops. No, you got to let them load it up the first time and then pull out the I need double chicken card. Got to get that protein in, especially when you're on the road. So absolutely destroyed that to round out the day and then headed on home. The kids are starting school this week. Don't ask me why they start so early in the year, but wanted to hang out with them. So it was a little bit of a shorter show for me this year. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of insight into how I think when I'm walking a card show and what I'm looking for just in general when I'm making deals. So if you enjoyed this one, I actually put together a video that has 31 card show tips that I wish someone had shown me years ago. I'll leave a link in the description if that sounds interesting at all. But otherwise, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.